Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart. In this episode, I have the Suzuki GSX-8S in the shop with me. This bike here at TST Industries is destined for the track next season. We will be tearing it down and we will be building it into a twins class racer. It'll also be joined by the newer model that Suzuki just dropped, the 8R version. So the parts that I will be portraying the installation of on this bike will very likely fit the 8R. We checked the parts diagrams and the components that I'll be installing are the same on all the motors of this class. So even the V-Strom 800 is technically able to receive these parts. However, these are going to be track bikes. They are track specific. They do not require any of the components I will be removing in this video. These components are for the preservation of our environment, and the bikes are not road legal once you take them off. So please consider that for your application. The responsibility of keeping your equipment road legal rests with you. So you make that choice. I will just portray how to install our parts. The installation is fairly simple. The kit comes to you with 2 aluminum block-off plates and 3 rubber caps. The plates will replace the air injection sight plates that come with the bike that have hose bibs on them. This will just block off that passage and not allow the air to come into the exhaust stream, thereby making the tuning of this bike a lot more efficient and also precise, because we will not be accounting any air that got in there outside of the intake tract through the combustion process. We will also be eliminating some of the nasty popping that this bike gets during deceleration when fresh air is getting pumped into the exhaust. So several benefits there. We're also going to be eliminating a bunch of weight that's on the bike that's unneeded for the racetrack environment. There is a charcoal canister right here and a bunch of hoses and several valves that will need to come off. We'll go through them one by one and we'll describe the process exactly with precision so that you guys know what you're doing. One other thing I want to mention before we start is we do have some gasketing components coming off the bike that I don't like to reuse. Technically, they're capable of being reused as a gasket, but it's extra mass that you don't need in there. I'm going to be using black RTV silicone. This is a high temp silicone that's used for gasket making. I'm just going to dab this surface a little bit with it, and that will take care of our seal so that air does not attempt to get in our exhaust stream once we're done. All right, installation is going to be pretty simple using very simple tools. Let's grab them now and let's begin. I want to portray the entire first step as one chunk. That will be the disassembly. I will start with the seats. That one comes off with just the key. This one, we use a 5mm Allen key to unlock it from this rear fastener here, and then just comes up and back. Up front, we will need to get to the tank fasteners. So first we'll take this shroud off. There are 2 push fasteners up in the front area here. Push in the center and then withdraw them. You could actually just push forward on the whole panel and that'll come out and we'll have these guys captive. What I like to do is reset them at disassembly time, and that makes reassembly much easier. All right, now we have this area open here. There is another push fastener here right behind the fork leg. This one requires a flathead screwdriver to pop out. And this is the component that I just took out. This is it in its locked position. Get your screwdriver in here and you just pop the head up, and then you'll be able to withdraw that. And I'll grab a 4mm Allen, come down here. There is a screw right below this white panel or colored panel in some other color scheme cases. This will need to come out. It's a black shoulder screw. 5mm thread, M5 thread. Switch to a 5mm Allen, come up here, crack this open. It's a silver no shoulder screw, M6 thread. And then finally up here, we have another black screw that receives the 5mm Allen. This is a shoulder screw, and it has a 6mm thread. Once those are out, this entire panel is loose. Right around here, there is a mushroom fastener. You just pop this panel up and that clears. And now this entire panel assembly, painted and molded, will need to be pushed forward. At that point, we clear these windows from these tabs, and this can come off. I'm going to repeat this exact set of steps on the other side. The next set of steps will be the tank removal. We will take out this 10mm head bolt, and then we will loosen the pivot bolt here. Let's do that now. Use the 10mm socket. Here I'm using a 5mm Allen. This remains in place so that I have a hinge. Lift up on the tank, and we will need to take out the electrical connection from the fuel pump, and then also remove the fuel hose. First, the orange clip goes down. When this clears, that enables the inside latches to be pressed together, and the fuel hose comes off. Now I'm going to remove that aft screw that I left in for hinging. Once that's out, this tank is free to come off. I like to rest the tank on something like a used tire so that I don't make contact between the pump surfaces and the surface that the tank rests on. Now we have access in here, and just need to make sure that gas doesn't drip all over the place. So I'm going to have it upright. You could put a rag around this as well. All right, that's looking good. Now we'll need to get down below here and find our air injection covers on the head. The head is black on this bike, and the air injection system plates here are silver, and they have a number of hoses attached to them, and also the air valve here. All that stuff will need to come off, but first we can just take off these guys and block off the ports on the head, and then worry about all the hoses and secondary equipment that can come off. We have a very cumbersome fit here between the radiator and the motor, so I'm going to take out all of the screws that hold the radiator onto the frame here so that I can move it around. I'm going to start down here, 10mm socket, then this one up here, and a matching fastener on the other side in the same location. Now we have some movement in the radiator that will permit a little bit more access for my hand. I will switch to an 8mm tool. I'm going to try my ratcheting box wrench first, and that proves to have very limited access here. So I'm going to try an 8mm socket. Go with a short 8mm, and that'll probably do the trick. All right, that's looking good now. Once I crack it loose, the ratchet is too cumbersome. So I'll go in there with a socket and do it by hand. We are going to reuse these screws, so please keep them. Now I'll need to get to the other side of this same cover with my ratchet. And that one is going to be very cumbersome. We can potentially loosen this and take it off. This is the overflow line to the catch can. This will give me a little bit more space to work with. Once the second screw comes off, we have this assembly here. There is a reed valve plate that comes off, and now we need to grab this thing and pull it off. We could just use brute force as long as it doesn't harm any other components around. All right, so this comes off and will be replaced by the nice black anodized TST plate. I think what I want to do is remove this hose from here. Get a little bit more access this way. Okay, so the elbow hose comes off, and now we have nice access. Let's check this out, make sure we know proper orientation here. And it'll be as follows: TST upright and legible, right up against the motor. I'm going to grab this RTV silicone I mentioned before, and I basically want to put a little bit of that silicone all around that mating surface here. What we're looking for is just a tiny little layer, not too thick. We don't want to squeeze out an entire bead out of there. When we go to tighten it, we just want a little bit of a gasket. Now I'm going to grab the new plate, put a screw through it, and start the screw thread. I'm going to grab the other screw. At this point, I'm actually going to mate the new plate onto the head. The silicone is going to keep that on the head for us. And now it's time to put the other screw in and engage the thread. That proves to be a little difficult here. Lack of space is the main culprit. Once both those screws have their threads started, it's pretty smooth sailing from here forward on this side. Gonna seat the screw down, hand tight. Make sure that the plate is actually matching the contour of the port. Gonna wipe off any excess silicone that came out the top. And now I'm gonna use my ratcheting 8mm box wrench to tighten this down. All right. Tighten these guys down all the way, and we'll hop to the left side and perform the same procedure on that side of the bike. So pretty much the same procedure on this side. As you can see, I have managed to slip off the air injection valve. So at this point, I will disconnect the electrical connector to it and just go with it. This is one of the components we will be removing anyway. It just came a little sooner in the sequence. Get out of the way on this side. We'll take care of removing it a little bit later. Let's finish up with our plate. Plate's already out of the way. I'm gonna put some RTV silicone on there and replace the new plate with the old screws. So at this point, we have our solenoid valve for the air injection system hanging here. We've detached it from all the components that went to the head. Now, as you can notice, as I articulated around here, there is a big hose that goes all the way here to the air box. So for the removal of the rest of these parts, we'll have to jump up here and be very careful around some of these components that are neighboring it. I'm actually going to take out the connector for the airbox temperature sensor so that I have less bulk here. Let's go ahead and drop this connection from the airbox. Once this comes off, I am going to take this clamp off because I will be snaking this up forward. I don't want to lose this in there. We do have this routing up and down and snaking all around. We'll just have to be very careful. So I will provide some tension here on this side. There is a routing clip here right behind this screw. I just undid it. It's just finger tight. And we can't just yank on it because there are other components in the way. We may damage them. So there is an L bend in this hose here. I am going to push on the hose forward and down while I pull up and forward on that elbow of the hose. And now this guy's out and it's pretty much free here. Nice, all right. Okay, so now this whole guy is out. We do have this overflow catch can connection that I'm gonna put back on. All right. Now, we do still have one steel bracket held by a 10mm hex head screw that is up in there for the purpose of hanging this assembly with two pegs going through here. I will drop that now. I will require an extension. And that is just really difficult to see, perform, and capture on camera. So we will treat this step as an optional step, and you'll have to identify where I took this out of. I will demonstrate what I took out, and you'll be able to spot it looking up into this compartment. So this is the bracket I'm taking out. It unscrews from the bottom of the bracket that holds the ABS pump. And now we have all of these redundant components coming off. And now we're clear here, so I can reattach our cooling system to the bike. All right, there is a connector here that originally connected to this solenoid. We have our solenoid function and the error codes associated with the solenoid being missing flashed out in our flash tune service. That flash tune service is available through our website, tstindustries.com. Should you choose to also flash your vehicle and want to go with our flash, we can also add this function removal for you. What we've noticed on this particular bike in our mode of use is that in stock form, without the functions or errors being flashed out in the flash tune, the unplugging and keeping this disconnected does not produce a check engine light. Now, this is in limited testing because this is not our typical mode. So for now, we're gonna leave this as, if you unplug this, it's very likely it will not throw an engine code. If it does, we will have an available dummy plug that is a resistive element that goes into that plug and fools the computer into thinking that this is still there. But if it does not produce a check engine light, I think that's redundant, and I'll leave it up to you guys whether you want it or not. We do have those available. For now, we will keep them as a special order item. You will have to call in or message our customer service guys and let them know what's happening, and then we can provide that component at a minimal cost. All right, forward section's done. Let's go back here. We have to do something about that gaping hole we left behind by the removal of this hose. One of the caps that shows up with this kit is meant for this location. It is a vinyl cap that just needs to be stretched over this hose bib here on the airbox. And it is a little cumbersome, but technically you want that because you don't want this slipping off. Now this fits with a lot of friction, and the airbox is typically under vacuum, slight vacuum, but vacuum nonetheless. So you do not technically need a clamp there. If you want to reuse one of the clamps that came off with this setup, you may. I'm just going to keep it like this. I've been doing this in the same fashion forever, so that is how I'll go. Replace this connection and protect it with the cap. And now this area is good. We're going to hop below here. We do have this charcoal canister here. The cap can come off right away. We need to slip that off its keeper. It does have a very similar keeper system to this, where you have a rubber grommet over a steel component. This one happens to be a tab through a slot. If you push the entire assembly forward, you can clear that from that location. We'll probably have to do it from the other side. Let's hop on over. So on this side, let's first remove these two hoses from the canister. This way the canister is actually free. This hose is the aerator or breather for the tank. And this upper hose is what leads through a solenoid into your intake. And we will also be taking those off, but that's in a little bit. Let's see if we could dislodge this giant canister. Like I said, push that forward, it'll clear those tabs, and then we could rotate it and take it out through the left side. All right, here's the charcoal canister. These are the slots that tab into this keeper tab. Like I mentioned in my earlier statement, there are redundant parts that are left over here. So we will likely take them out and terminate them appropriately once we're working on our airbox area. The screws for this bracket system are actually located in between the airbox and the frame components. So it's very, very difficult to get in there. For now, we'll just leave them be. We'll just extract the hoses and eliminate what we can from this working location. Another hose comes off. And then we have this last hose here. That will come off. and that is from the solenoid valve side. On the other side, by the throttle bodies, this hose splits into a Y and goes up into the throttle bodies. We will have to take that down. Here is the hose Y split that I was describing. We will now be taking down the connections to these bibs on the actual throttle bodies underneath. That comes off fairly easy. We will be replacing these hoses with the caps that come with this block-off kit. The left side's very easy. You just jam it on there. Again, we have a lot of friction here, and the intake tract is typically under vacuum, so they are safe this way. If you want to reuse these clamps, that's up to you. I typically don't. Now we have this challenging one back there. My friendly long reach needle nose may help me get this done. Once our plugs here on the throttle bodies have been successfully seated all the way down, we're going to deal with this hose. This is the aerator or breather hose for the tank. It needs to remain in place, or you could run a different hose to a different location. That's typically what I do for our race bikes when I build them, but for this particular light project, I am going to snip off a part of this hose / cut it like this, and then get it seated back into this routing element with the other hose. I'll tell you why I snipped it off. It was pointed this way, and that points right, directly opposite the motion of grime off the chain. The chain sprays stuff this way, so there is not a lot of opportunity for stuff to travel up into that hose, but we don't want to ask for trouble, so we're just gonna leave it / cut here, and it will breathe down and away from the stream of grime. Now let's go ahead and start the reassembly of all the components on this bike, and then we'll be done. Let's go ahead and bring the tank back into location. I'm gonna place that pivot screw through the rear. All right, now we have access. So we are going to connect our fuel line, push it on carefully until it clicks, and then put the safety retainer back in, plug in the fuel pump, and now we can replace the hoses on here. The aerator hose goes over this thinner or smaller diameter bib. And then we have our overflow hose that will likely only fit once I get this lower. So I don't know if I'll be able to show it to you guys effectively, but just know that this is the last one that needs to be replaced. I can technically pull up on it, get it in place, and then pull down on it from where it exits. All right, that's looking good. Make sure hoses are not kinking, fuel line is not kinking, and we're placing gas tank in its original position. I'm gonna replace the screw up top here, get that started. Get my other tank screw finished up. And that's pretty much it for the detail here in this video. Every step past this step will be the reverse order of disassembly. If you go backwards from what I showed initially, you'll have success. What we've done here is eliminated 800 grams of mass that will not be needed in track environment. That's 1.76 pounds of dead weight. We have blocked off the air entry into the head exhaust stream so that no more nasty popping will happen under decel. Some people like that, but for myself, I just like the precision of getting only the exhaust gases through the exhaust, proper dynamics of flow, proper acoustics, so that we get maximum possible performance out of our setup. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. This installation's complete. Bike's ready to go. If you like what you see here, check out tstindustries.com. We have these components ready to go, ready to ship to you. We also have some parts that you may want to check out for other rides in your garage. Thank you for watching. Ride safe. See you later.